All right, everyone, what a night that was. The kind of night when records are broken. We had Celtic's first victory in an opening Champions League match. We had our biggest win in the UEFA Champions League, the most goals we scored, first time we scored 5 goals. And we had our first Irish scorer in 13 years, and then another one about an hour and a half later. It was a fantastic night. And yes, it's not just me today. As you can see, we've been joined by a very special guest. We've got a face that will be very familiar to you, Enda Coll, from numerous different podcasts. Most notably, I'd say, the Huddle Breakdown that people will know. Enda, you're in Melbourne now, obviously. It's not the nicest of days. We're not really selling Melbourne, the fact we're inside. It's still kind of winterish though, isn't it? How are you?
I'm grand, yeah, it was good. The early start was made much easier with that win, and for anybody who is used to watching me on the Huddle Breakdown or on the podcasts, they'll probably be wincing at the thought of me talking about Liam Scales for like 30 minutes now after getting the opening goal. But yes, it was like two buses coming at once when you've been waiting for so long with Irish scorers. So nice to see. I thought Adamita's finish was class as well, so I was delighted to see him get on the score sheet as well.
Yeah, Darren Gibson, the last player, 2011, a long time ago. So as you say, it's like buses. How are you? People will be wondering. I mean, people will be sad you're no longer on the Huddle Breakdown. You've moved out here, obviously. How is life?
Yeah, it's good. Like, just moved out here, probably like yourself, just to see what the crack was, see why people have been raving about it, and the weather has not played ball just yet.
When did you move out?
July. So I moved out in the middle of winter for them. So I think getting used to the early starts is something that I don't envy the foreign fans, the fans that have to get up at this time all the time. So it's definitely given me an appreciation for the fans out here, that they do really like put the commitment in to get up at 3-4 o'clock in the morning to watch these games.
Yeah. Just final thing, we were hoping we'd be outside. It's not great weather. That's a wee view of the city though from the top of my building, so you can enjoy that. Great city. You talk about getting up at 5. It's much easier when Celtic are playing like that. I'm guessing people are waking up this morning feeling absolutely buzzing. I mean, we won 5-1 in a UEFA Champions League match. It's ridiculous. It's
mad, and like the fact that we haven't won an opening fixture in the Champions League blew me away, because I mean, it feels that way, but it also didn't feel like, oh God, it's been like we actually have that hoodoo over us. And I think that's what's most pleasing about this, is people will say that, you know, the opposition were bad, which they were. Slovan Bratislava weren't up to much at all, but there's been games where Celtic have gone in like that, and this is the game where, you know, Greg Taylor gets sent off in 3 minutes, and then Liam Scales boots the ball off Cameron Carter-Vickers into his own net, and suddenly like the crowd are against you and the buzz is all gone. Whereas like I'm not going to say from start to finish, because the first half Celtic did control possession a lot, but like from the first goal, Celtic controlled that game from start to finish, and it was the dominant display we were looking for.
I think it's a good point you make. I mean, the amount of times we've played teams like that, maybe not necessarily in the group stage as it was of the Champions League, but Europa League and qualifiers. How many teams like Slovan Bratislava have we struggled against in qualifiers over the years? And I think in the lead up to the game, we were all trying to just kind of make sure we weren't getting ahead of ourselves. Nobody really was predicting 5-1. I certainly felt that Bratislava would be a tough match. I just don't think Celtic allowed them into that game at all. I thought we controlled the game in possession, and see our hunger when we've not got the ball this season. It's unbelievable. We get so many chances from Dyson Maida or Nicholas Kuhn or Kyogo nicking the ball up high up the park, and what a team we are at the moment.
Yeah, like I take notes on my notes app when I'm watching the games, if I'm going to be talking about them, and 3 minutes before the penalty, I just made a note to say Celtic's counter press is amazing, because every time they lost the ball or a play broke down near their box, straight away they were on it, and they got a couple of chances. Kyogo could have scored one. Should have scored one, and then
4 chances in the first half. Maida had 2 and Kyogo had 2.
Could have been 3-4-0 up without really exerting ourselves in the first half, and then the penalty comes from a counter press. The penalty comes from winning the ball back and putting that pressure on. So like that's where Celtic are going to get sort of goals and get chances in the Champions League, is not constant pressure like Ange Postecoglou was trying to do, but pressure in the right areas and pressure at the right time, and I think they're doing it much better this year.
Yeah, it's funny because there was a moment in the first half, and you probably remember it was Liam Scales and Cameron Carter-Vickers just passing the ball between themselves, and I think it was a spell of like, I don't know, 90 seconds of just consistent Celtic passing, not necessarily going anywhere, and then someone gave the ball away or Bratislava won it back, and suddenly we pounced, and I think Maida nicked the ball, and suddenly we're in goal, and that's kind of us in a nutshell. Sometimes we're almost just waiting for the opposition to come out, commit, and then we can pounce on it. Where do you want to start with the actual game itself?
I think we go through it methodically. Like, I think from like the first half onwards, like Celtic went into this game and they were like 12-1 on favourites to win it. Yeah. Like that's Ross County odds. Yeah. And then I thought what was great about this and what was so exciting about this performance was they actually kind of played like they were playing against Ross County.
I had the exact same thought.
Yeah. Once they got the goal, they just, slowed the game down. And I know some of the fans in the stadium got a little bit angsty at times because they're used to the hurt of the Champions League, but Celtic were in control of that the entire time. They tired Slovan Bratislava out, and then they went at them again after the second half, once the second half started, and then got the goals, killed off the game, and then again controlled the game from then on. So it was like they did what they needed to do and more. And I think that's what was so promising about it.
Yeah, I mean, how many chances did the opposition actually had? They had that one when Weiss kind of ran in, but he had a great game, by the way, didn't he? He kicked out at Engels.
I don't know how he got away with that. Like, I thought the referee was actually, I don't want to harp on about referees after a 5-1 win, but he was very trigger happy with his whistle.
Yeah, and I thought Alistair Johnson was unfortunate to get a booking. Were you watching on Stan Sport here?
No, I was watching.
Oh, don't incriminate yourself.
Yeah, I was watching on the RTE player.
Okay.
Which was quite funny. Is that like Ronnie Whelan, the former Liverpool player, was on co-coms. Clearly, has never watched Celtic in the last couple of years, and he was blown away by Greg Taylor. He was blown away. He was comparing him to Trent Alexander-Arnold and the role he plays for Liverpool. So that'll show you how high in esteem Greg Taylor is in Ronnie Whelan's.
I might be able to beat it. I had Sam Matterface on my commentary. He was talking about Luke McGowan. I don't know why he was talking about it, but he was saying McGowan. And when Johnson got his booking, he was wondering why Johnson got booked. And it was very obvious for the tackle, even though the foul had already been given. But he was saying, was it dissent or whatever? And he was it was solo commentary as well. We didn't even have a guy next to him. It was a solo Sam Matterface. So it's a compliment to Celtic that they managed to make that game enjoyable, even though I was listening to Sam Matterface.
That is one step above Sam Matterface and Jermaine Genius, though. So that's sometimes the partnership you get. My major complaint with coverage of the Celtic and Champions League is when they have two faceless people in the studio talking about the game, and then You'll Never Walk Alone is done by the time they cut to the game. It's go to the atmosphere. It's famous for Champions League nights. I want to see it. Yeah. I think that's what most people want to see as well. So, that annoys me.
Yeah, it sounds like the atmosphere was great. I couldn't really tell because, again, the audio mix was a little bit out on what I was watching here in Australia. But pals at the game said it was an amazing atmosphere, especially in the second half when we obviously knew we were going to win. So we get the opening goal. Take it away. You can discuss his overall performance as well if you want.
Well, I think
got man of the match, by the way.
He did get man of the match, and I just sent out it's a little bit of a fishing tweet. I'll put it that way. Scales has now scored, or has now been man of the match in Celtic's win over Feyenoord in the Champions League, Celtic's win over Slovan Bratislava in the Champions League, and Celtic's win over Rangers at Ibrox. So for a man who is labelled a bomb scare consistently by a certain, I'll say it's a small level of Celtic fans at this point. It's the longest sort of bomb scare that we're waiting to go off for a long time. But I think he is growing into the role. Like undoubtedly, there are parts of his game that are frustrating, like when he holds on to the ball too long, or when he doesn't see Kyogo's runs and things like that. Like that does need to be improved. But if you're talking about like the Liam Scales that came into this team a year ago under Brendan Rodgers versus this Liam Scales, like it's a completely different player. He's so much more calm on the ball. He's getting better in there, and he can still get out muscled.
More
sometimes.
Aggressive. I saw a stat, and I don't know it, but I saw a stat about him winning the most duels, I think it was, of any player in the Champions League so far this season, which is admittedly only 2 days, but still decent, and the most since Mikael Lustig about 8 or 9 years ago, I think. So he's so physical at the moment.
Yeah, things are just not he's not getting out muscled as much in the air. I think that's one thing, people can maneuver him quite easily in the air, or did in the past. So I think he's just going through the ball now at this point and doing the simple things. But I think a big thing for me with Scales and Cameron Carter-Vickers, but Schmeichel really brings a different dimension to that back line, because Celtic are so much better at playing out from the back now. They're so much more confident. Even when Bratislava were pressing against Celtic, like, it was a couple of passes in the corner, then they got it to Cal McGregor, and then he gave it to Schmeichel, and then he took it again. And suddenly there's an acre of space for McGregor to break into. So I think Rodgers has to get a lot of credit for that as well, because it's a different team this year than it was last year.
There was a moment, I think it was a Dyson Maida chance right at the start, where he put it over the bar, and that was an incredibly well worked move. And again, it was right at the back, and I'm convinced there was a moment, I'll put it on screen in the edit, but there was a moment when Kasper Schmeichel gets the ball, and I am convinced that Joe Hart kicks this long. Nothing against Joe Hart, by the way, he was in Match of the Day, apparently speaking very highly of Celtic and Brendan Rodgers, but Schmeichel passes that, and we just build from that point. And it's just like, it looks really simple what Schmeichel does, but it's just a calming influence to everyone, and it allows us to play through. I think it's going to be interesting to see if we continue to do that against the better teams. We have to keep doing it, and it's going to be more of a challenge. But I think tonight was a major, good start for us. Frustration that it was only 1-0 at half time. I think the last 10 minutes of half was kind of watching, and maybe we're just getting a bit greedy, but it's kind of thing, I don't just want to win this by a goal. I want to go out and, I don't know if make a statement is the right phrase, but I just want to convincingly beat this team. Like, I feel like we're so much better than this team. Let's go and show it.
Yeah, and I think you could get that from the stadium as well, from the fans. You could kind of feel that in the atmosphere. But as I mentioned earlier, like, that was just Celtic dominating the game in any other way that they would previously. Like, if that was against Ross County or St Mirren or any of the Scottish teams in the Scottish League and not a Champions League night, you'd probably be happy enough that they were keeping possession and sort of saying, actually, there's bigger games coming down the road, conserve energy a little bit, pass the ball around, dominate the game, tire the opposition out, and then strike when they're tired. And I think that's what Celtic did against this team. They just kept them at arm's length. It wasn't as if they weren't creating anything either. Like, they did break through a couple. Like, Kyogo could have scored 2 or 3. Maida could have scored. There was a chance for Kuhn as well that he passed it to Engels. He had a shot on goal. They were creating things. It was just they were just doing it on their terms. And I think that's probably the difference in Brendan Rodgers versus where Ange's team were in the Champions League. Is Ange probably would have went all guns blazing that entire game and might have conceded a goal on the break. Whereas I don't think Brendan Rodgers is going to allow his side to do that against these teams. Yeah,
it's a good point. It feels more controlled, but there's still a real intent to want to go and score goals. And Rodgers spoke after the game. I think he said that, first half he didn't feel our play was quick enough, which I found interesting, because I thought, looking at that first half, I came away quite pleased with the way we were controlling the game, but he wanted things a bit quicker. And you see that right from the start of the second half. Did we have like a chance right at the start? I feel like we had right from kickoff, actually, we had a kind of chance, and then obviously a goal comes a few minutes after that.
Yeah, I think it went to a corner or throw-in, maybe in the right-hand corner. But yeah, you could definitely see that with every single play that, like, the players were sprinting over to take throw-ins, they were sprinting over to take the corners. They wanted
space as well. Yeah, they love space.
And I find it hilarious. Like, they really did tear Bratislava apart in the second half, and they were just exhausted. And there was a period where it was after Forrest came on, where Vladimir Weiss just stopped running. Like, he was running back. He got halfway into his one half, and he just started walking because he just couldn't do it anymore. And I think that's where Celtic just really tore them apart. Like, it was just the quickness of their play, the fitness. And Brendan Rodgers actually mentioned that before the game as well, that the physicality of the Champions League is something that they need to deal with, and it's something that Celtic haven't dealt with over the last couple of years. Like, they died on their feet 60 minutes in most of the games in the last 2 years. So I think that's probably the key part as well, is that they have the physicality to bring Bratislava out of the game, and then they bring players on that people trust. Wow. Yeah. Because you look at the players coming off that bench. James Forrest regained a lot of trust of the fans last year, I think. Adamita comes on, scores a goal. Bernardo comes on. I think you could have brought Luke McCowan on in that game, and people would have been absolutely fine with that as well. Like, I think the atmosphere doesn't die, or the fear doesn't come into the team or the fans when we're making subs now, whereas 3 months ago it would have.
Yeah, 100%. Like I just thought when we have space to play in that second half and you're bringing those players on, again, like you say, that was like, how many times have we seen a Scottish Premiership match and we're 1-0 up at half time and then the goals come in the second half? Like, it happens virtually every week, and it was like that again. We scored 5 goals. We could have scored like 10, like genuinely, from the chances we created. There was times I was watching it, almost kind of pinching myself, and like we do need to put it into context. Like, Slovan Bratislava, I think Celtic should be doing that to teams. Like, that certainly should be beating Slovan Bratislava. If we hadn't have won that game, I think it would have been a pretty big failure. But to go out and to win 5-1 at Champions League level and play that well, and I mean their goal was out of nothing really, and we could have scored double what we did. So 5-1 really flattered them in that game.
It was basically 5-0. Like, the goal came from
Greg Taylor, 3
errors, a shit clearance, and then I'd say a really good finish, to be
unbelievable
fair.
Finish,
from a
that's an example of the quality at Champions League level.
Exactly,
against Dortmund and all that, we can't afford for that stuff.
Yeah, like I don't have to keep repeating it, but like I think this is a game where it could have gone wrong. Yeah. It could have been same old Celtic, play really well in the Champions League but don't take their chances. Whereas I don't think there was really any fear of that tonight. Like, if there are actually, you could pick out pretty much all those goals bar the penalty that you would have said on another night Celtic would have missed them. Yeah. Like last year Celtic would have missed them. Kyogo wouldn't have taken his chances. Ida would have fluffed his lines. Maeda would have skyrocketed that over the bar.
Still did that.
He did that a couple of times. But like that, like the footwork for Hatate to get Maeda in on goal in the first place is the good stuff that Celtic have done before. The finish is something that Celtic haven't done. Whereas I think once we got that, it's a monkey off Celtic's back now that they can play well, they can dominate a game, and they can win the game. Yeah. Whereas like previously they weren't doing that. They were just playing well and getting the tap on the back. Well done, lad. Aren't you a great little club playing well at the Champions League level now?
Yeah, and the confidence is going to go through the roof. The confidence among the players, confidence among the support, and the quality of the goals as well. Like, you look at all of the goals, and in different ways there was real quality, from Engel's delivery for the first goal to the last goal.
What did you think of Engels overall? This is the biggest test.
Yeah, he was brilliant. The weekend I thought he was good. Today last night he took it to a different level. I thought he was fabulous. He just looks ready to play at Champions League level. And again, bigger tests will come, but he looks ready for that stage. And it was his first Champions League game as well, and he wasn't overawed at all. Nicholas Kuhn, who, to be fair, was kind of quiet, but still has these brilliant moments. Like, Nicholas Kuhn's just a joy to watch. It was his first Champions League match. So those guys, so exciting, isn't it? This team right now is just like so exciting. I mean, we've won 5-1 in the Champions League opener. We've beaten Rangers 3-0 in the first derby. We've barely conceded another goal apart from that. I think Hibs have just scored, the only other team that have scored against us. We've won, I think, 15 games in a row now, going back to last season, the draw at Ibrox. I mean, it's an incredible team we're witnessing. Sorry, Arne Engels was brilliant. You can talk about him.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think Celtic are unbeaten in Celtic Park in 2024. So that's pretty good going, and probably should finish out the year unbeaten. Well,
Leipzig will be tough.
Leipzig, I'd say. Let's go.
Yeah, don't think we should be losing to Leipzig. I think
it's a game I feel more confident going into now. After that, I thought Engels he's a lovely mix of that, like, Belgian and German arrogance, a little bit. Like,
apparently Didi Hamann compared him to a young Kevin De Bruyne. Apparently that's what he said. But
not getting ahead of himself at all with that one. No, but I think he's just. I love the fact that he's just stepped into this. Big pressure, 10 million. Straight on the corners, straight on the penalties, straight on the free kicks. I'm going to be the best player at this club, and I'm going to prove it. So I love that with a young player who's got the confidence to do that, as long as he backs it up. I thought you mentioned Nicholas Kuhn there. Like, what Kuhn did there is exactly what I want him to do, a little bit more, because a lot of the time he cuts back and he takes a simple pass and plays it into midfield and sort of slows the play down. Whereas when he just goes at players,
that's for the Kyogo goal.
Yeah, for the Kyogo. When he runs at players, when he takes it to the byline, when he gets it across, that's when he causes damage. Yeah. And I know like there's a lot of things at play here that Johnson's playing in the overlap, and that's why he's coming in the inside. But when he mixes it up and just runs at players, I think that's his strength. So he just needs to trust himself a little bit more. My worry with that is that players like him tend to be confidence players. So he needs to keep playing as well as he is. Otherwise, I think, you could see maybe a dip in the middle of the season.
Okay, that may be coming. I just think Nicholas Kuhn is fabulous. He just looks ready at Champions League level. Even like, that's a daft thing to say, but just like watch him as a player. He just looks like a player the way he carries himself. And I think when he first came to the club, you couldn't say that about him. It's been an incredible kind of turn in fortune since then. Alistair Johnson was brilliant.
Class.
Like just legs all over the park, and I'd kind of questioned it a little bit after the weekend because he was really poor on Saturday. He was giving the ball away. He could well have been our standout performer. I mean, it's probably Engels, but it's probably Scales or Engels or
Maida.
Maida. Like, you could pick anyone, but Johnson was great.
Yeah, I thought he was like he's so solid and he's so strong and physical and exactly what you kind of want. I saw like recently people dragging up the Juranovic Johnson debate, and I think genuinely Johnson's a better all-round player now. Now that he's added in that overlap run that Juranovic was so good at with it would have been Jota at the time. Like that's such a dangerous part of Celtic's play now, is that play into Kuhn, bring it inside, ball into Johnson and a cross in. So like I think Brendan Rodgers mentioned before the game that like one of the reasons for bringing Engels in was a power, like to add more power to the team. And now you're looking at Celtic and they do have power, and like you could even say Schmeichel has power, like in terms of like the way he plays. He's aggressive. Cameron Carter-Vickers is like that. Johnson's like that. Conor McGregor's always been like that. Engels has got power. Kuhn has running power. Maida has power. So like I think Celtic they're much better equipped now to play against bigger, better sides that are more physical than them because they can keep up with them physically. Yeah,
it's just so exciting. What an exciting team. Just Brendan Rodgers' comments quickly. It was a great night for everyone. You just sensed it before the game, the feeling in the crowd. I'm so proud of the team. The intensity which we played at with and without the ball was so good. Just everything. The mentality, hunger, greedy for more goals, greedy for the ball, everyone working right to the very end. And we could have had more than 5, so it was a really good performance. The league table's not looking bad. Second at the moment. Celtic goal difference really promising and positive as well, +4. That could be important as well, like down the line if we need to finish ahead of a certain team. It's a great sight, isn't it?
Did you see Brendan Rodgers' joke?
Yeah.
Nobody laughed.
But that Rodgers is feeling it at the moment.
He's never been so back. He's cracking jokes the whole time.
He's feeling it.
Press conferences these days. But I don't know if you saw the clip of Joe Hart on Match of the Day talking about Rodgers when he came in. I thought that was very interesting he sort of felt his way into the team, and then it was like, okay, now we're playing Brendan ball, and I think that kind of tracks with the season as well if you look at how they started to play. And I said it at the time that it was around the time when people were like really annoyed by the lack of signings and like things weren't really going well, and Celtic had loads of money but weren't really spending it. And I thought that people were forgetting to count Rodgers as a summer signing, because we lost Ange Postecoglou, who was a world-class manager, to the Premier League, and we replaced him with a world-class manager from the Premier League, and he's not a cheap one either. Like Celtic could have taken the cheap option. They could have went for a development manager. They went for Brendan Rodgers. And I think now he's sort of like the Engels signing of managers. Like you pay for quality. Celtic have paid for quality in Brendan Rodgers, and they're starting to get that now. So as long as they start building on this and they see, like the board see, we spent 10 million on Engels. It's mad what happens when we buy quality, exactly. Isn't it? And the thing that kind of annoyed me about the penny pinching in the club was that Celtic made 3 million off that game. They got 2.1 million with the win, and they got 300k per goal. So
really,
yeah.
Wow.
So around 3 million for that win.
Yeah.
that makes sense financially to build a team to win these games. You are getting way more money doing that than you are fighting against Rangers for the league. So it always made sense to me that why not spend money when you've got a cash cow in the UEFA to win these games, get the money and get like bring in money that way outside of like trying to sell your best players every couple of years. So I think that's where the money is. So they need to just keep investing in these players.
I need to just say Real Hatate I thought was great as well. A lot of chat in the lead up to the game about whether he should start. I always felt he would start. You could argue it's harsh on Bernardo that he hasn't started either of those matches, but listen, Bernardo's going to play a big part going forward. He's going to start against Falkirk, I would think. Hatate, I just thought had a really good game right from the start. Big part of what we do. McGregor was great as well. It was just a general great team performance. What about going forward? Because we've got 3 points in the bank. We reckon we need 10 to make it through to the next stage, so 7 more from 7 games. It feels doable based off that performance and our fixtures. But we go to a couple of tough games now. Dortmund away, Atalanta away. Sorry, is the pressure on the pressure off the team going into these games, just given that they were so good tonight?
Yeah, they got one monkey off their back with getting that win on the first day of the Champions League. I think the next one is to not have a terrible result away from home. Okay. Which, like, a draw against Dortmund would be an amazing result away from home. A draw against Atalanta, although people might not think that they're as big as a team as Dortmund, I watched them in the Europa League final tear unbeaten Bayer Leverkusen apart. They're an exceptional team.
Playing Arsenal tonight, so you can check that out, everyone.
If we got a point away to either of those sides, I think that's a good start. Watching Young Boys against Aston Villa,
you fancy that?
Fancy that. Do not fancy Aston Villa at all. I know people won't want to say that because they want to compare themselves to Premier League sides, but I think Aston Villa away on the last game of the Champions League is an awful draw. But outside of that, I think it's given me confidence that Celtic aren't going to fumble the bag against Young Boys, or against Club Brugge.
They lost, I think 3-0 to Dortmund.
Yeah, I think those are two other sides that we can win. We can win against. So
and then you only maybe need another point, and Zagreb away. Leipzig at home, I think we're jumping ahead here. We'll take it game at a time, but next time we play at Celtic Park, Leipzig at home, that's going to be a hell of a night. Even if we lose our next 2, if we were to beat Leipzig in match day 4, you'd be looking good for the next round. So I mean, that's the opportunity they've given themselves by winning the game tonight. Imagine we hadn't have won tonight. So
yeah, it would have really kind of put the brakes on the good feeling that's going around at the minute. And I think like the important thing is just making sure that the players stay fit throughout the season, because if you don't want you want your best players fit all the time, but you don't want like your best players to be fit for those bigger games that you may not win, and then be injured for the Club Brugge game or the Young Boys game or the Zagreb game. Like, you want them available when you need them most in the games that you're going to have the best chance of winning. So I just hope that there's no major injuries like there were last year where Engels is out for a couple of months or something like that.
Yes, just want to give a shout out quickly to the B team. You might have seen this. They're top of the league, so we're second to the first team in the B team in the UEFA Youth League are top of that. 4-0 win. Tough day for Slovan Bratislava. Cummins got a double. Turley, who we've obviously heard of, and Iseguzu got a late one. So that's positive as well. It's just been a really good day. What's your final comments on the day?
Just delighted to get it done, get it over, get the nerves over and done with. And also I was really looking forward to seeing Engels like at the top level, the level that you're kind of expecting, and he didn't disappoint. Like, I think he's going to be a top player this year. Liam Scales obviously going to be. He's obviously going to get.
Especially not spoken about Adam either.
Well, I'll mention Adam either briefly. He was awful for Ireland over the international break, like properly bad. Okay. But so were Ireland. So I think Adamita certainly seems to thrive when the team are better, and more dominant, let's say, rather than parking the bus. So it was good. It was good to see him back and happy and scoring goals again, because he wasn't good against England or against Greece. Not a good international break for him. So good to see him back scoring. Trusting will need to earn his position by the looks of it. Yeah. But again, this is a massive positive, is that Cameron Carter-Vickers has finally got someone that can come on as a sub for him.
Yeah.
So he won't be running that knee down to the bone this year, which is another positive. So I think, overall, I can't have any complaints from this outing.
Fabulous. It's been amazing to have you on. Thanks so much for coming on and chatting about Celtic winning 5-1 in the UEFA Champions League. I'm sure you'll all let us know your thoughts on the game, and I'm guessing they'll be very positive. And I think we'll be back tomorrow. Stevie's going to join me. We'll discuss the game some more and look ahead to the weekend game against Falkirk. Speak to you all soon.